What's up, rock stars? How are you? And welcome to another episode of the Rocket Live Show. And I am joined today by a very dear friend of mine, events producer extraordinaire, and all-around creative talent, Sasha Perelman. How are you, Sasha? Welcome to the
Hi,
show.
Chris. I'm awesome. I'm so excited to be here. That rock music really got me amped up.
You got amped.
Yeah.
Right on.
Ready to rock.
Ready to rock it. All right. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you making time to come on the show and chat with us here today. As always, I love to thank everybody at the top of the show who's watching this live with us right now. And a big thank you to everybody that will be watching the replay of this, as well as listening to the audio version later on. As we go along, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to add, just feel free to stick them in the comments and we will see them here live and we will address them as we go. So I want to dive right in. Sasha, tell us all about yourself.
Oh, wow. I don't think we have enough time on the show for that, but I'm Sasha Perelman, a native New Yorker living in beautiful, sunshiny Los Angeles. And in addition to many hats I wear, I run an agency called Revolver. And we're an experiential agency. We produce events for a bevy of CPG clients and do a lot of work in rather taboo spaces, including cannabis, psychedelics, sexual wellness. Those are industries I'm really passionate about, mainly creating new narratives in those industries, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit more. I'm also a poet and aspiring author. I just completed the first draft of my novel. And what else? Love to cook, love to travel back in the day. Love to adventure. Total self-proclaimed serial connector, like my boy Chris over here. Now I'm also a talk show host because of Chris. Just like a lot of interesting roles that I've been playing, particularly since the start of the pandemic. But yeah, I'm overall just a creative producer. I love bringing people together through the environments that I create through my agency and the teams that I employ. So something that I've been doing for almost 20 years, which is fucking crazy.
Nice.
I'm only 21, so it's like I don't get how that adds up, but
right.
Yeah, but I've been doing it for a really long time and love what I do what I love. That's the name.
I love it. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So you talk about doing what you love, right? You're pursuing your passion, and I have the privilege of having known you for a while, so I know the inside story. I know a lot of the scoops, and you and I actually met, which is once again talking about the power of networking, which we talk a lot about on this show. You and I met at an event in New York City. I feel like it was like 100 years ago, although it still feels like yesterday.
Might have been 100 years.
It was like in a basement, or I guess not basement, but like lower level of like a bar or something. I remember that part, and I don't know. You and I just started talking, and that was it. It was like just instant energy, instant connection there, and this also just speaks to why you go out, why when we get back to networking in person, why it's so powerful, and how you can actually meet people that really help you in life and help inspire you and motivate you and just become really good friends. So I've been around to see your growth from when we first bumped into each other at that event to where you are now. So I'd love for you to talk a bit about like the passion that you have for doing what you do, because events is like your main thing, but you've been able to really like splinter out and start to really dive into some of the things you've been very passionate about for a while. But you also made an exodus from New York as well.
Yeah.
Which took you to sunny California, which I was super jealous when you did that, because I was like, man, I want to be going too. So Yeah, I talk a little bit about that passion that you have and that drive for doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the long short of it, or the short long of it, whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to also reiterate that like networking is such a powerful tool. Relationships are beyond a powerful tool. And if there's one thing that I would say, as far as like, you're building a side hustle, or you're doing the entrepreneurial thing, or just in general, just your existence, like it is so important to cultivate and nourish meaningful relationships. The only reason I've gotten from where I started to where I am today is because of the people I know. It's because of the community and the tribe I've built around me that has really helped propel me to this point, who pushes me, who introduces me. So we can't stress enough. Like I wish when I was a teenager that someone gave me that nugget of information of like network, because I probably would have done things a lot differently and started building community from like, the age of 13, taken all of my bat mitzvah money and like, joined like a marketing group or something. But alas, like everything in due time. But I spent a vast majority of my career in the luxury beauty space. I transitioned to the agency side. I was making a lot of people a lot of money. And, I was just like, okay, like I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm not really feeling like I'm producing with purpose. There's a lot of the same redundancy and like it was like very corporate. And it's ironic because I work with a lot of corporate clients now. But I just felt like there was more for me to do in this world, in this life, in my life. And I started to take a look at what are the things that are really important to me. What are the things that I enjoy that spark, passion and ignite me in a way. And what I quickly realized, funny enough, from hosting these like little dinner parties that we called college night, because we would do them on Thursday nights, is that I have a real affinity for bringing people together and creating environments for them to really flourish in a way that builds human connection. Mm-hmm. And that really is at that's really the impetus of everything I do, is like fostering human connection, pushing the envelope with some really provocative conversations, and ultimately, just thoughtfulness. I think that that's really, being a boutique agency in size, right? We're not like one of these massive behemoths, event production companies. We're really small. That's really intentional. And when I say small, it's not small in our abilities. We've produced concerts for up to 30,000 people. It's more so like this personalized touch that, I'm involved with every client, and really understanding their why, really understanding if we're going to do this event, if we're going to spend, $100,000 to produce X event, why are we doing it? What are we trying to accomplish? And understanding the why helps me and my team go back to the drawing board and really develop strategy and an environment that is conducive to that. And I think that that is absolutely why I've gotten to this point, is that, clients have from day one sort of seen the value in that. They've seen the thoughtfulness that goes into the production that they're receiving, and the personal touches. And I'm also like a huge junkie when it comes to the five senses. I really love tactile, like textured feeling things, from, what is the experience that you're having with the food, to the music, to, the textures and touches that you're engaging with. And that has really lent itself to my work in the cannabis space, because I'm like, oh, wow, like here's this totally fucking awesome enhancer. And like, what if we created this really multi-sensory environment? And that was, very much like kind of like the principles in which I approach, the lens through which I approach my events, is like, how are we hitting all of the five senses and making this like a really immersive, entertaining experience for the guests, from the second that they find out about it to when the event is over.
Right. And you said some really key things there, which I think are really important for people to understand, because for people that they don't do what you do for a living, right? So they just, I think when people think of event planner or event, producer, I think they just really think about the nuts and bolts of it, right? And putting the event together. But I don't think often, because it's just what people don't know. What they don't know, what they don't know. So you know what they don't know, and there's a level of creativity. Actually, a big part of it is very creative, and there's an art to it. And I think that that's something that when people really begin to find out what event production is, I find that to be something that they're always surprised about, like the level of not just, like I said, the nuts and bolts work of doing the actual production, getting it together, hiring crew, running budgets, all those producer type events, but the real creative and art side of it, because of a lot of things you just said that you totally touched on there, which is the pairing of different things, creating this unique experience, which as human beings, like that's what we relate to, right? It's all about experiential and things that create like memories. And if you have a terrible experience at something, it sticks with you. When you have an amazing experience, it sticks with you. And that just doesn't happen like out of thin air because you hired some people and ordered flowers and got staged, and like it's just there's so much more to it. So that's why I love what you just said, because I think that really goes a little bit deeper into what I think people normally understand about what event production is and how much is brought to it on all these levels, like you were talking about, like the senses, which is the auditory, the visual, the taste, all these different things. And it obviously the what kind of event it is dictates that level, but there is definitely a certain amount of creation that really has to go in there. And that's too why you choose to work with different people, because of what they bring to an event, what they're capable of doing, what their specialties are, so on and so forth. So that's why I really like that you talked a little bit more about that, because I think it's important for folks to understand that it's not just about like, oh, just gonna order some flowers and whatever, it's the fish or the chicken or the steak dinner. There's just a certain level of real planning and consideration in there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps to have the blessing of like the ability to work with both sides of my brain, right? The analytical brain and then the creative brain, because they're very different, but they very much lend to themselves. And I think like for me, when I hear the word experiential versus event, what is the difference between the two, right? And for me, the word event is almost like this one-dimensional thing. It's like you go in, you come out, the end, right? Versus an experience is something that lends itself to starting from the second you find out about it to what is your experience after the event is over. And is it something that you feel super compelled to share with your network, post to social media, because it was so profoundly moving or so thoughtful or something that you never experienced before? And I think like the word experience, and which ultimately lends to experiential, is really that like thoughtfulness that exceeds just the standalone event, and that it is something ideally that's really memorable and moving in some way, that you feel compelled as the person who experienced it to tell all your friends about it. Like, oh my God, like you'll never believe what where I just was and who I saw, what was there. And, like that to me is that's like the biggest reward of what I do, is being able to, like cultivate that in people, to encourage those sorts of reactions. Because, in light of everything that's been happening, I think people are hungrier for experiences now more than ever before. It's just like getting out of your house and, wow, my New York accent just came out really strong just now, but
can't kill the New Yorker.
New Yorker. Getting out of your house and really, just having kind of these tactile experiences that transform time and space. And, like I am seeing a lot of these pop-up exhibits that are happening now, in particular the Van Gogh Experience. And like, how cool is it that they've created a space that is so immersive that you feel like you're inside of a painting? It's just kind of like
wild.
Saying that out loud, you're like, that's kind of crazy, but also awesome,
Right.
and it's such an amazing space to see what creatives are doing to transform the notion of time and space, environment, being able to transport you to somewhere completely different, whether it's outer space or, into a locker room for a sneaker launch. Like, it's really cool. There's a lot of just amazing creatives in the space that are creating profound, monumental experiences, for brands and for individuals, and it's really cool to witness.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen a lot of really interesting things go on recently, and if one thing has been I hate to use the word benefit, but if there is an opportunity or to look at what we've all been going through collectively as an entire world, as a global community, is how this pandemic has affected everybody and pushed us to do different things and have different experiences and think about doing things that we would never thought before, especially in the virtual space, things like that. Which leads me to talk a little bit about like fast forwarding a little bit here, because right now as we're doing this, like COVID's not gone away. It's really not ever going to go away. It's just what we're all doing is we're all vaccines and all this, and so I feel like as we all see things, light is at the end of the tunnel. We will be getting back to some sort of a semblance of life with in-person events and doing different things. So let's fast forward a little bit. What kind of mark do you think this has left? And we'll just keep focused on events for now, like the event space. I don't want to go into all these other industries, but let's just keep it focused on events. What kind of mark do you think this has left on the events industry to where it's going to go? Like what? And listen, it's hard to predict the future as to what's going to happen. But where do you think it's going to go, or how do you think this has affected it for the future of doing events?
Well, I will say that, like many industries who took a significant hit throughout this pandemic, events definitely. A lot of my vendors and partners have lost their businesses, which has been devastating. Looking into my crystal globe and kind of like what I see in the future, I think it takes a couple of shapes. I think one is that live events are going to come back fast and with a vengeance, because people are hungry for one another, and that's totally expected and normal. I think that there hopefully will be some level of cognizance around continuing to maintain social distancing protocols and safety measures to ensure everyone's well-being. And if that's not being done, then that's really problematic, because I just think that, like, this pandemic started and kind of upward super quickly. Like, there's no avoiding that happening in the future unless we're all doing our part, especially for producers and planners. And I think that the role of virtual events and, the digital space is going to continue to evolve, that in addition to live events, there will always be a virtual component. And so, they're coining it kind of hybrid events in the space, which I think is smart, because virtual events, while they may not be as multidimensional as a live in-person event, may not cultivate the same sort of dynamics. Technology will come into play to help expand on that and to help evolve that in a way that will be more engaging and will be more interactive. And I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening in the augmented reality and virtual reality space as it pertains to events, because I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. But yeah, I really, companies would be remiss to not take advantage of the virtual piece, because it minimizes costs. It eliminates the barriers of time and space, really, because anyone from anywhere in the world can now attend your event, which is pretty cool and really outstanding for companies and meeting hosts to be able to do that. And just thinking of that's also a super easy way to drive revenue streams, right? Because now you can let's say a 5,000 person conference that you would put on would cost you X amount to do in person and feed all the attendees and travel and hotels and et cetera, versus I can now increase that audience to 50,000 people and make the ticket price smaller, but I've now cut my costs, I don't know, by what, 80+%, So, or even offering a smaller in-person conference with a virtual component for those people who aren't comfortable traveling, or for those people who don't want to spend the money to travel. I think that it really, there's a lot of opportunity there. And, what I hope to see, and this has been my biggest qualm with virtual events, is just more engagement. Let's create some, doper things, because I have yet to see anything that's been so absolutely extraordinary. And I wish I could sit here and say that I should be creating that stuff. But I've kind of taken my own route during all of this, and virtual events. While I think that there's a lot of opportunity, it's just not our, it's not our meat and potatoes. Let's just say.
Yeah, I hear you. No, that was really good, and I think that was a lot of really good insight just from your point of view. And I think it is interesting, because it's interesting to think about what's going to happen. And I already see a lot of I'm a big guy. I love going to concerts. I love going to shows. I love going to clubs. It's not even going to MSG and all the big shows. I love going to a lot of rock club stuff or outdoor festivals. And I am jonesing so hard for that to get back to going again. I mean, it's something I really miss a lot. And I'm starting to see tickets going on sale and these little announcements of things. And obviously nothing is set in stone, because because no one knows. So it's I appreciate the optimism of everybody. Hey, let's just start putting dates up and see what happens. But I think that, it's kind of it's very much unwritten right now. So we'll see where it goes and where it evolves. But I do think that almost everything, this pandemic has changed and forced us all to blaze new trails and look at things a little bit differently than how we were looking at them or doing them before. So, and I think events in particular, I think we're going to see events being done in a different way. And whether that's including a lot more safety and social distancing, maybe more of a return to smaller, more intimate kind of events, not larger. It's going to be really, really interesting to see. And especially too, I am interested to see how they're going to do it when they get back to doing concerts and clubs and things like that, and how they're sort of going to control that. Because I know not everybody's going to be ready to be I know a lot of people are chomping at the bit to go, but I know there's still plenty of other people who are still very I'm not sure I'm going to be ready to go back there for a little bit. So
totally.
I think it's all kinds.
I was literally having that thought the other day. I had some really dope music playing in the background, and I just wanted to get down and dance. And I was fuck, I miss, by the way, I would not voluntarily miss clubs. I'm the last person to do the clubbing thing. If I had to or whatever. But I the fact that I can't, or that I won't, I consciously choose not to at this state. I'm damn, I miss those wild nights out where you're just, fist pumping in the air and dancing and no one's watching. I miss that. But it's also funny because, like I don't miss people, like sweaty people being gross and being all over me. So it's kind of this double-edged sword, but
Yeah, of course. It's like you miss the atmosphere and that sense of community and having fun, and yeah, like you said, like not giving a crap like what anybody thinks about you, but you don't miss the other side of like, yeah, sweaty people spilling drink, just the whole other stuff that comes along with being able to do that.
Yeah, well, that's like, it's funny because that's the interesting part about the difference between live events and virtual events, right? It's like, I love music and especially like, the sound quality of seeing a live performance or even being in the club and like feeling the bass and like the vibrations and, like the energy of everyone there. And so, while I think that people are trying to like recreate that in virtual environments, that is very much not the same. It never will be. Like, I'm curious, virtual reality, like I've been reading about DJs who are actually doing like virtual reality concerts, and there's like some gear you can put on that simulates the vibrations as the DJ is doing his set or her set, which I think is so extraordinary because now you could have like this 3D environment around you where you feel like you're immersed in it. But then also you have this kind of tactile experience of like feeling the vibrations and the sensations of as though you're at a real concert. So I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I like that. And so, yeah, those are those things that I was talking about, like the blazing new trail and pushing things and trying new things out and just trying to continue to create that in-person experience that we're talking about, but being able to do it in the privacy of your own home, but still play on those senses to create that experience and stimulate the thinking and all that. So yeah, it's all very creative and all very interesting. So we'll all be watching to see where it goes and how it evolves through all this. So
yeah,
I want to transition a little bit now because we've been talking a lot about what you do for a living, mostly your event planning, being a creator, but you have a very strong artistic side. And I do want to talk a bit about that because you are an author, you're an artist and you're a poet. And so you've created, you've got a one book out now. You're working on another book. And then there's also a video series that you're producing. So let's talk about the book that's out now.
Yeah.
Which is XXXV.
That's right. Make sure you include all the X's.
Triple XV.
Triple XV, that's right. So this was actually a passion project that, thanks to COVID came to fruition. It was a really beautiful collaboration with the artist Anna Cybell, who is an extraordinary mixed media artist. She's also like one of the few female graffiti artists in the country. Just really dope. A lot of like social impact in her work that she does, which I really admire. So I wanted to create a compilation of my poetry that I've written over the years, specifically 35 to kind of play off of the XXX because the poems and the artwork and photography is quite provocative and sexually charged, if I dare. But it's really, the poetry is inspired by everything from love, lust, breakup, to perspective on the world, and the photography and the artistry in the book pairs really nicely. So it's completely black and white. It's a coffee table style book, about 9x9, black, white, gray, just really sexy stuff. You can check it out on the website, and we still have a few copies available for sale. But what I loved about creating this book is two things. One is I've never made a book before, and it is a lot of fun work, but it is so rewarding when you're holding this baby in your hands and you're like, wow, like we did this, and we did it quick. We did it in like 5 months, like hyperspeed from, like concept through having the book in hand. And we've created a lot of content to support it, which is really awesome. But I also like built an experience around it. So you get your book and you also are sent like instructions on how to consume your book, customized playlist, like little nicks and knacks depending on what you order. But I wanted to make sure that, again, it's this multidimensional experience, and it's not just, I get the book, I sit and I read it, and I leave it on my coffee table. Like, we really want people to engage with the stuff that we're creating, and so that's been just a really dope, like, God, like, talk about starting something and finishing something that is tangible is just really, it's really rewarding. And watching people, like last night, I had a friend over who actually I want to shout her out a little bit because she makes these, can I show like provocative stuff on here?
Whatever you want to do.
She makes these are puzzles. Okay. It's called Puzzlegasm. And this is also like a COVID creation. So we exchanged some puzzles for some books, and I watched her sitting in my dining room, like turning through the pages, and just completely like wow with every spread. And I was like, fuck, like we must have done something right for her to have this reaction. She's used to seeing obviously like provocative stuff, but so that was really dope. And right now I'm in the process of writing a novel. And the novel has taken sort of like a new direction with being really around intergenerational trauma. I'm first generation Russian, Jewish American. My family grew up in a communist country where there was a lot of anti-Semitism, specifically toward Jewish people. And the story really envelopes like the notion of trauma and how trauma is passed down from generation to generation. A lot of it is unconscious. A lot of it shows up in our lives. And this is really about my journey, trying to work through that, to gain awareness around it and to heal it. And so it shares about their journey from dating back to my grandmother being born, to their immigration to the US and creating a life for themselves, and, the dynamic around relationships, really, particularly through, these sort of 3 generations. And that's been, like, writing a book is like, I equate it to kind of like training for a triathlon, like, you're all gung-ho about it. You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this. And like, you start training and you're like, shit, I have a lot of work to do to get to the finish line. But, I hired a writing coach that has been total game changer. I really believe in coaches, and I love kind of this analogy. I don't know if it's Tony Robbins, but it's like, Olympians have coaches, right? Like that's why they get to the Olympics. And so I think coaching is really invaluable and has helped me propel a lot of my creative desires and passion projects forward, including the coaching that we've done together through Rocket Growth Agency too. It's really propelled me to my talk show, Coffee Talk.
Coffee Talk.
Yeah. And that has been like a super fun project. I can't even thank you enough for cultivating and then like synergizing this whole thing. Because you and I had a conversation, I think one time, where you're like, you got to create content. I was like, fuck this. I hate content. I hate social media. I'm not doing any of this. And you're like, but you need it. Like, you got to be relevant, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, dude, you're so right. But I like hate you for it. And, like, goes to show you that being uncomfortable is a really good state, because that means you're doing something right. So
yes,
you challenged me to make a list of topics. You're like, just go brain dump a list of topics that you want to talk about, and we'll hatch a plan. And I took like 30 minutes and I made this list, and I had maybe like 30 things on this list. And I quickly realized from making this list that I was like, I have a lot of really dope people in my network. And it goes back to your network is your net worth, right?
Exactly.
But I was realizing how quickly I had so many conversations that I could have with so many people. And I was like, I should just turn this into like a little TV show, like a little series where, you know, we'll do like quick, like 15, 20-minute episodes, and we'll just like, you know, we'll just rock out. And so I did. And so like several months ago, I started just inviting people to join me. This is with Sasha Mercy, who's an influencer and like just freaking amazing, hilarious comedian, actress.
Yeah, this was a great interview.
Yeah.
I love this interview. This was great.
And it was just, you know, I just have so much fun with it. And it has epitomized the, like, this aspect of, you know, like, love what you do. Like, if you can find the joy, and if you can find, find the joy in what you're doing, you know, like, see what you have fun with, see what sparks curiosity. And I have to tell you that, like, you know, even doing this series, just the level of growth and learning that's come out of it, like, not only am I relearning some things about my friends, but, you know, my network, but it's also like teaching me how to be more proactive in the way that I show up as, you know, the host, or, you know, thinking about this notion of like, shit, I got to be really fucking vulnerable to put myself out here, you know, like sharing these talks with people in hopes that they're going to think it's interesting and resonate with it the same way that I do. But I quickly kind of came to the realization that it's really not about me. It's like, I'm doing this because I'm really enjoying it, and because you told me to, but also
yeah, but you had to want to do it. I told you to do it, but you had to want to do it. So it doesn't matter if I say it. I mean, you still have to want to do it.
Totally. But you know, I kind of like have this motto now that if Coffee Talk, you know, can, even like with all of my projects, right? If I can create impact for one person, that's already progress. And living by that and creating through that lens allows me to maintain a lot of integrity and authenticity in what I'm putting out there, because it's not about like, you know, obviously I'd love 1 million viewers, but that's not what it's about for me. For me, it's about education through entertainment. And, you know, if we can have conversations about sexual identity and have conversations about racism and social justice and and we can shape the perspective or get one person curious about the topic, like I've done my work, you know, like I could walk away feeling like this has been a successful project. So yeah, I think like very much COVID has allowed me to get back to that, you know, to get back to like the piece around creating from a place of absolute like joy and authenticity, as opposed to, you know, like, oh, I have to grow, I have to scale, I have to do all of these things to get my business to the next level. Those are all really important too. I don't want to discount that.
Right, of course.
But it's like, you know, going back to like, why am I doing this in the first place? The why, you know, like I ask my clients all the time, what's your why? Like, what's my why? And how do I create from that place?
Yeah, I think it's super important. It's one thing to do it, but you should have, I mean, if the purpose, by the way, if the purpose is solely because I love doing it and it's fun, done. Like, that's it. Like, if that's truly your only purpose for doing it, then great. Like, that's your why. But if it has a much more deeper seated meaning, or, you know, or if you're looking to monetize it, or somehow turn it into a business driver, or it has a marketing aspect to it, I mean, those are things. But once again, then how does that relate? How does it tie back in to your overall mission, depending on what it is that you're doing? And not everybody has, you know, when it comes to something like a video series or podcast, not everybody has a business tied to it. Like I said, some people are just doing it simply because they want to talk about things like Star Wars and comic books or something like that, which I do. So, but it just goes to your point, like, just, whatever your why is, like, just embrace it and go for it.
Yeah.
As long as it means something to you, it's worth doing.
Yeah. And we spoke, and I had to offer up this cheesy quote, but it's like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I think, like, often we stand in our own ways a lot of the time, from taking chances, taking risks, doing the things that really inspire us and instill, like, passion and purpose, which is a shame, right? Because it's like, we only have one life, and we don't know, like, there is so much uncertainty in life, and especially now, it's like not taking advantage of every moment, and doing things that bring excitement, or cultivate play, or whatever it is. It's like, that sucks, like, life is not supposed to be like this miserable, fucking depressing thing. It's supposed to be fun, and like, we work hard so that we can have fun, so that we can do things that really, like, set our soul on fire. And that's the chase. That's the chase right now.
Yeah, I love how you said that. I mean, that really is it, because there's so much more to life than just working constantly. That whole perception of, you gotta hustle 24/7. You gotta hustle, like the hustle life, that whole thing. And it's like, it's such bullshit. It just isn't. It's not true. Like, don't listen to that, because if you're gonna hustle life, like, it's not all about working. It's not all about, for me, it's not all about making the most money you possibly can. It's about, like, firing yourself up, firing your soul, feeding your mind, your body, your spirit, so that way you live a happier life, as opposed to just sort of living life on this, like, one term, or what you think you're supposed to be doing. But if you end your day being like, I'm miserable and I hate life, then you're definitely not doing something right. And we all have challenges, and that's life. Like, we're never not gonna face challenges. It's just how it is. I mean, that's part of living, right? So it's just all about how we deal with those challenges when they come our way, and whether we overcome them, or we let it beat us down, and and can't recover from it. So it's tough, and that's why everybody's different, and everybody's unique, and they're their own individual. But there's nothing that says you can't be happy.
Yeah, and look, like, at the end of the day, it's all perspective, right? It's all a choice how we choose to look at it. And I check out my interview with Amelia Zhivatovskaya, positive psychology extraordinaire. But she she talks about mindfulness, and she talks about gratitude, and something as simple as, like, before you go to bed, even if you've had a really shitty day, what are 3 things you're grateful for? And like clockwork, it just completely shifts the energy. And I think that we have a responsibility to ourselves to really look inward, and start gaining more self-awareness of how we're showing up, not just in the world, but, like, to ourselves. A lot of us are really mean to ourselves, because like, sort of unconsciously. And I think that there's a lot of really simple practices that we can engage in on an individual level, as a family and partnership, as a community, that can really help shape our perspective to not receive everything so intensely. You know what I mean? Like, that's all very much a choice. And like, there's so much programming that's happening constantly, and especially, like, with this hustle mentality, and this very, like, kind of like American way, capitalist way of, like, oh, if you're not working from 9 to 5, like, what are you doing with your life? And not celebrating our creatives, and just it is very much that programming and that culture. And like, it doesn't mean that we can't push the norm and push boundaries with having these sorts of conversations, and encouraging others around us to be like, oh, you know what, like, yeah, it's not worth being miserable every day. Or, like, why not try this? Like, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, like, I do it, it sucks, I fail. Okay, like, learn from that, keep it moving. Like, that's what this is about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the perception of failure being a negative word is something that needs to be completely turned around, because failure just means that, hey, you tried something and it just didn't work out that time, but you're going to learn something from it. I don't know anybody that's ever failed something and didn't learn something from it that then turned out to like make them better or great, or just find a better way of doing it. Like, it means you're learning, like, and that it just needs to be celebrated and looked at differently, rather than just being like, well, you failed, so you're a piece of garbage, like, or like, just that perception of like, just complete failure. But or that person's a failure, you're gonna, or don't do it because you're gonna fail on it, you're gonna fall on your face and you're gonna fail, and it's just not the way it needs to be looked at. Like, we treat failure as a negative thing, and it should really not be looked at as negative. It should be looked at as, hey, at least you tried it and you learned something, and now you're going to do it better this next time around.
Yeah, totally. I was doing an interview the other day, and the question was something along the lines of like, if you could like give advice to other entrepreneurs so they don't make the same mistakes. And I was like, it's not mistakes. It's like, it's actually like opportunities for growth and learning.
Right.
Like we all make mistakes. We're human beings. Like no one is perfect. I don't even like care what you say. Like no one is perfect. But mistakes are just like failure, are opportunities to grow. And that's all in our power to choose that path, like
Absolutely.
There really is no such thing as an overnight success, despite social media in particular being this facade that like, oh, I started my business yesterday and today I'm multimillionaire. Like, no, like people are hustling, people are grinding and fucking up a million times over. Like from the minute I started my business to what it is today, like I've made a billion mistakes. I've
Right.
like failed at things, at projects, whatever. And it's hard. It's emotionally like you got to process all of that.
Of course.
But at the same time, now moving forward, you're not going to do the same thing, or you're going to set more, more firm boundaries around what you say yes to and what you say no to. And that is all part of like the human evolution and your own personal growth opportunities. Like if you look at it as like failure or mistakes being something that just completely debilitates you, then that's not progress.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely well said.
Thank you.
Couldn't have said it any better.
In my next lifetime, I will be moonlighting as a therapist, I decided.
That's what Coffee Talk is. Coffee Talk's your entry into that.
That's the next transition of Coffee Talk is going to be actually like therapy, coffee therapy.
Absolutely. I love that. That would be great. So we're going to wrap up here. This has been an awesome conversation. And I'm like, I'm purposely wrapping because I know you and I could just keep going and going and going. We could probably talk for another 2 hours about all these different topics. So we'll definitely have to have a part 2 to this and keep going on about it. And I want to thank everybody so much for watching live. Thank you, Karen, for chiming in today and leaving some really awesome comments on the comments on LinkedIn. Appreciate that. Want to thank everybody for watching this live, everybody who will be watching the replay, and everybody that will be listening to the audio version of this. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe wherever you're watching this or listening to this episode, because it really helps when you like and share, because it not only just helps me, but it also helps my guests, most importantly, to help them get their word out and their mission and their story. So, Sasha, before we say goodbye, what is the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, definitely Instagram, Revolver EXP, our website, also revolverexp.com. You can message us directly through the website and someone will definitely get back to you. And then, my personal LinkedIn, Sasha Perelman. I'm always happy to make introductions, have conversations. I offer complimentary consults for anyone that's kind of curious about events, how to pivot, how to do all the things, to stay relevant during these challenging times. So please reach out. I am personally very invested in all of the messages I receive, so I will make sure that myself or someone on the team gets back to you. And Chris, thank you so much for having me. Like you said, I can talk to you for hours. I'm so grateful for our friendship, for our professional relationship, which has really challenged me to grow and rock out. And I literally couldn't do this without you. So I'm very grateful for you being in my corner and such a tremendous advocate and very good friend. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you very much, and thank you for allowing me to be in your life. I really appreciate it, and I really thanks for coming on today and sharing your story. And I know there's so much more for us to talk about, so we will definitely have a part two to this as well, and get you back on. So with that, I want to thank everybody once again for watching and listening to another episode of Rocket Live. And remember, always be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it. Yeah.